Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen expects OP to buy her a very expensive wedding dress. My niece demands I pay for a $5,000 wedding dress. A little background. My husband's niece lost both her parents when she was almost 11. She lived part of the year with us and part of the year with her grandparents on her dad's side. Not long after the funeral, she mentioned out of the blue that she wouldn't have anyone to take her wedding dress shopping or buy her one when she grew up. I reassured her that between her grandma and us, she wouldn't be alone and would have a beautiful dress. Of course, when she graduated high school, she said she was never going to get married. She met her boyfriend in college and they moved in together, and when she became pregnant, she quit school. This disappointed her grandparents, and even more so when she told them they weren't getting married just because of the baby. Fast forward 10 years and 2 more kids, she and her boyfriend came over to announce that they were finally going to get married. I initially thought it would be a courthouse ceremony or an intimate family gathering. Instead, she directly asked me, "Do you remember when I was 11, right after my parents passed, and you said between you and Grandma we'd find me a dress?" I replied that I did. She then showed me 2 dresses from a magazine, one priced around $7,500 and the other at $5,000. She said that since her grandmother was also gone, she was hoping I would help her not just with the dress, but also with some of their $29,000 wedding costs. I told her that when I said I'd help, it meant going with her to find a dress and contributing to its cost. I also assumed that the help was for a wedding that was not already 10 years delayed. I'm not against her having a wedding after all this time, but considering they've lived as a married couple for many years, something simple would have been more appropriate. I offered to take her to a local bridal salon and contribute up to $1,500 towards a dress. I even showed her options from the salon, most of which were under $1,600. I reminded her that the money from her parents' trust that was set aside for her college and wedding had been used to buy her boyfriend a car. She got upset and said her kids would hate her for not having one of those dresses. The kids are barely 9, 6, and 2. I haven't heard from her since. We're on Social Security and barely make ends meet. I understand that costs have risen, but I've seen so many dresses priced lower than what I offered. I feel she should have saved money, either on her own or from her inheritance. Am I wrong for not helping with the wedding after all of these years? Edit. My husband ran into her boyfriend, Mike, at the gas station. Mike explained that they were initially content with their situation since they considered themselves soulmates for all these years, despite not having the marriage certificate. Their oldest daughter had been teased at school because her parents weren't married, which upset her greatly. They tried to assure her and spoke with the school and the bully's parents, but the situation was distressing for their daughter. They then considered going to the courthouse to get married so they could have the certificate. She then thought about having a nice wedding after some program. Mike suggested that they dress up the kids, she could get a nice white dress, but nothing too extravagant. He didn't know how things had escalated, but suddenly she was talking about a wedding planner and found dresses in a magazine. Mike said he wasn't willing to spend that much on a dress that would be worn for only a couple of hours. A high school friend visited and told her about the proceeds from the sales of her parents' house, which her father had managed. From then on, she seemed to believe that she had more coming to her. Mike appreciated our offer, but felt that she was no longer our responsibility, as she is now his. I feel a bit better knowing that he understands and appreciates the offer, but she is now his responsibility. Not the jerk. $35,000 on a wedding they can't afford when they have 3 kids and minimal education is obscene. Guilt-tripping a relative on Social Security to contribute thousands is awful. Your husband's niece is an entitled, ungrateful brat. Not the jerk. You were being generous with your offer and she wouldn't take you up on it. If I were you, I'd withdraw all offers of help. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law the world doesn't revolve around her and her kids? I, 33 female, am a mother of 2. The other day was my son's 5th birthday and my husband and I threw a party at our home. The party has caused a bit of a rift between me and my husband's twin sister, Eve, who's 36. Eve and I don't have much in common, and I usually only see her during holidays and special occasions. She and my husband are not particularly close either. For context, Eve has 3 kids who are 9, 5, and 2. A few days after the party, Eve messaged me saying she might not attend because it would be during her youngest nap time. I told her that her kid was more than welcome to sleep at our home and that we could put her in our youngest room. Eve said she would think about it, but that she probably wouldn't come. Eve didn't message me or my husband again, so we assumed she wasn't coming over. However, she did turn up on the day. About 5 minutes after arriving, she asked if the bed was set up for her youngest and I explained that since we weren't expecting them, I'd need a few minutes to get it ready. Eve then asked if we didn't keep our kids' bedrooms tidy, which really irritated me. Her daughter ended up sleeping fine. She fussed a bit upon waking up, but at least the nap time issue was solved. At one point, Eve saw the cake we had for our son, which we had hidden in the kitchen so he wouldn't see it before it was time to blow out the candles. She commented that her kids wouldn't eat that kind of cake. It was lemon cake, if that matters. I know a lot of kids might not be keen on lemon cake, but it's what my son likes. I told Eve that we had some candy in the kitchen for her kids so they wouldn't feel left out when it came time for treats. They ended up leaving abruptly before we got the cake out, only saying goodbye to my husband. Then they came back with chocolate cupcakes from the corner shop. Before we had done cake and candles for my son, they were gone for maybe around 30 minutes, and they started serving them to their kids. This caused some of the younger kids at the party to start fussing because they wanted cupcakes too, and there weren't enough to go around. Eve also kept connecting her phone to our Bluetooth speakers to play music without asking, even though we already had music playing. I asked her to stop because it was just creating a mismatch of sounds through the house, and she called me a grump. I guess that was the last straw for me. After the party, I told her that the world doesn't revolve around her and her kids. She called me selfish and said I needed to lighten up. She and her family left quickly. My mother-in-law and father-in-law were still at our house, which made things quite awkward. Eve has been giving my husband the cold shoulder since, and I'm wondering if I'm the jerk. Not the jerk. People who are selfish and rude will often accuse others of being selfish and rude if they aren't given exactly what they want as soon as they demand it. If she's staying out of the way, take the win. Not the jerk. Your sister-in-law is an entitled brat. What clueless, self-centered person does what she did? Normal people don't. And I can well understand why mother-in-law and father-in-law may have been awkward as they were primarily responsible for raising this brat in the first place. Sucks to be them, right? Has your husband told his sister if she can't act like a decent adult in your house, she won't be invited back again? Her kids were fine though, so I guess there's that. Am I the jerk for refusing to move my wedding date after my brother said he can't make it? So I, 28 female, am getting married in 2 months. My fiance, who's 29 male, and I have been planning this wedding for over a year. We picked the venue, sent out save the dates last year, and everyone has known about the date for ages. Everything is set. The venue is booked, caterers, flowers, photographer, basically all of it. Deposits have been made, and at this point, we're just counting down the days, excited to get married and celebrate with everyone. Enter my younger brother, who's 25. He just got into a super competitive internship program that he's been wanting for a while, and he's over the moon about it. I'm genuinely happy for him because I know this is a big deal for his career. The problem is, he found out that the start date is the same week as my wedding, and he told me that he can't come anymore. Obviously, I was disappointed, but I assumed he'd be a little bummed out too and we'd move on. Instead, he asked me if I'd consider changing the wedding date. At first, I thought he was joking, but no. He was dead serious. He said, "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I really don't want to miss your wedding, but I can't be in 2 places at once." I told him there's literally no way I'm changing the date. We're 2 months out, everything is booked, invites have been sent, guests have RSVP'd, and people have already planned time off and booked hotels. Not to mention, moving a wedding isn't as simple as just picking another day, especially at this point. There's a whole cascade of other stuff I'd have to move, and that's if the venue even has another open date anytime soon. He got annoyed and basically said, "So you care more about a party than your brother's future?" Which really upset me. Like, come on. It's not like I didn't give everyone, including him, a huge heads up about this date. He's known for over a year. I get that the internship is important, but it's not like he couldn't have communicated with them and tried to work something out, right? Now my mom is all over me about it, saying that I'll regret not having him there, and that I'm being selfish by not even considering changing the date. She's implying that family is more important than one day, but I feel like this is the one day that's actually about me and my fiance, and I don't think it's fair to be expected to turn my life upside down to accommodate his work. My dad is staying out of it, classic, but I can tell that he thinks I'm being a bit unreasonable too. My fiance is backing me up, but I can tell he feels weird about the whole thing. He's a big family guy and doesn't want any drama, but he also knows how much we've already put into this wedding. I don't want to sound like I don't care about my brother, because I do. I love him, and I hate that he won't be there, but at the same time, I don't think it's reasonable to ask someone to change their wedding date this close. It's not like we're talking about a birthday party or something. This is a whole wedding. So yeah, am I the jerk for refusing to change the date and basically telling him that if he can't come, that's on him? Or should I be more flexible here? You can't move mountains for him. You can't do over everyone else who saved the date. There's no argument here. The date is the date. Now I get that he doesn't want to make waves, but my sister's wedding seems like an easy ask. Is it on a weekday? Why can't he do both? Not the jerk. Your wedding is not just a party. It's a significant event that takes months of planning and preparation. Your brother had over a year to figure out his schedule, and unfortunately, it didn't align with your wedding date. It's understandable that he's upset, but asking you to change the date 2 months before is not reasonable. He should have communicated with his internship and tried to work out a solution. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for sticking to your original plans, and congrats on your upcoming wedding. Is this just a manners disagreement? My husband and I just can't see eye to eye on this one. I'm 35 female. My husband, who's 38, and I recently got married, having tied the knot earlier this year. We had a nasty fight over the weekend that ended our camping trip early. I guess I'm asking for some perspective or validation from outsiders. I'm also venting a bit. My best friend lives in another state, so I don't see her often. My husband hasn't spent much time with her, only on 2 occasions over the course of a day or 2. They don't know each other very well. She has kids, etc. When I was visiting her recently, she overheard my husband call her a nickname on the phone that she didn't like. She asked me to talk to him about it and let him know that she wasn't comfortable with the nickname. I did that the same night before ending the call, explaining to him that she doesn't like it. It's a nickname that he and I had been using between us, but since I see her rarely, it hadn't come up before. It's a cute nickname, nothing mean. I think she just doesn't like nicknames or things that are too cutesy. This past Friday, the issue came up again. I spent all day packing our car for a camping trip, literally all of the gear, food, snacks, etc. I had a long day and might have been cranky. I was off work all week and I volunteered to pack everything. On the drive out to the campsite, he used the nickname again, and I reminded him that she didn't like it and had asked me to let him know. We got into a discussion about it that lasted 30 minutes. He said things like, "I'm going to try it out around her anyway, just once, see how it goes. And I want to hear from her why she doesn't like it." He said he was curious about her reasons and wanted to talk to her about it. I started to feel quite angry that he couldn't respect this simple request, and the idea of him being so disrespectful to her made me upset. He claimed that my request wasn't clear, so we definitely disagreed on that. I was quiet for the next 30 minutes in the car, just stewing in how the conversation went. After some time, he noticed I was upset and we started discussing it again. I told him I was really upset about the earlier conversation. We argued for another hour and 15 minutes until we reached our campsite. I expressed that it would be inconsiderate and rude to bring up the nickname with her, and I didn't know if there was some awful memory attached to it. She had been bullied back when we were in school. I mentioned this, and he continued to call her fragile, or she could just tell him that she didn't want to share why. The next day, he asked me to apologize for the 30 minutes I was quiet instead of addressing how he behaved during the argument. I was very upset with how the argument went and how he spoke to me on the drive home. He called me names like coward, said I love to lie, claimed I've never apologized to him, which isn't true. He's admitted before that he's happy with some of my apologies and described me as stubborn and ridiculous. He eventually agreed not to call her the nickname or bring it up with her, but I was deeply hurt by his behavior during the argument. We see a therapist every Sunday morning, and she said that my being quiet after the argument was the main issue, rather than how he behaved. I'm struggling to see it that way. I've since apologized for being quiet when I was upset and admitted I should have communicated that I needed space instead of just stewing. He hasn't apologized for anything, neither calling me names nor for not respecting the boundary I set. He's still angry with me and wants me to apologize for getting angry rather than having a rational discussion. Update. He sent me some messages a bit ago. "You have a lot of anger. Even if I was ignoring you, even if I was pressing an issue, you don't need to respond with anger. I hope you find a way to start looking at yourself and how you respond with more love and curiosity and simple communication rather than anger. I will totally try to hear the ask better. I'm sorry for my part in not identifying the underlying asks sooner. It's understandable that it was unpleasant for you because being ignored repeatedly would bother anyone. In the future, I'll try to see the ask you're making, even if I don't think I've heard the specific ask. I'll do more. Is this what you're asking for? I love you. I'm also sorry for any names I called you. We agreed that name calling is not okay. I'll continue to try to honor that agreement. I wasn't ever arguing with you. You made it an argument. I was just trying to chat with you. I think for it to be bullying, it has to be persistent over time. You could choose discussion first. Your ask wasn't clear. Getting mad instead of discussing calmly.
You've never once apologized for that. You justify your anger. It seems like it's righteous to you. You could choose to embrace the idea that you're the one getting yourself angry, not me getting you angry.
He's insistent that saying I'm being a coward is different from calling me a coward and not name-calling. He says it's
just stating facts.
I wrote down what he said as he said it because he often does this. He definitely called me a coward for not apologizing. He said,
"Seems truth is painful, and sometimes it is relevant to the situation."
Your husband is a jerk. Absolutely. I would not be able to stay in a relationship with someone so disrespectful. A narcissistic jerk. Sounds like he's trying to upset her friend so the friend won't talk to OP anymore. I'm sorry, but what the heck is wrong with your husband and your therapist? He thinks it's okay to argue with you for almost 2 hours over a simple request, like not using a nickname that your friend hates? Is he this argumentative and stubborn over other things, then demands an apology from you because you were stuck in a car with him and didn't want to continue arguing? And then on the way home, when you are again trapped in the car, he insults you and calls you names, and he doesn't think he has done anything wrong? How are you supposed to have a rational discussion with someone who couldn't acknowledge that using someone's nickname after being told they don't like it is fine? That someone who doesn't like a nickname is fragile? How was his behavior rational or reasonable? Is he like this often? You're recently married. Do you want to deal with this type of behavior for years to come? OP. He said that my request to not talk about it wasn't clear enough. I did tell him early on that she would find it inconsiderate, as would I. But he says because I didn't say something like, do not talk to her about it or call her that name, he didn't realize that I didn't want him to talk about it with her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Never marry someone who loves to argue for the sake of arguing. Engagement broken because of my maid of honor. I, 27 female, was about to get married to my fiancé, male 26, in a few months, but the engagement fell apart because of my choice of maid of honor. When he proposed, I went through the whole happiest girl alive routine. We made announcements, and both of our families were excited for the wedding, until we told them about our best man and maid of honor. He chose his older brother, and I chose my BFF, who's female 28. His family treated my choice like it didn't matter and gave me time to pick someone else. Every time I mentioned that my best friend would be my maid of honor, they shrugged it off, reminding me that I still needed to choose one before the ceremony. Their antics included blocking my BFF from the dress fitting, claiming that only the maid of honor could attend, and preventing her from picking a maid of honor dress because that's reserved for the maid of honor. My best friend and I repeatedly told my future mother-in-law and my BFF that my best friend was my maid of honor, but she brushed it off, insisting that I needed to pick one. A few days later, my fiancé asked me who my maid of honor was. I told him it was my best friend, and that was final. He took my hand, removed the ring, and said, "I can't value someone who doesn't value family." He left. The engagement was broken. I was dumbfounded, wondering what on earth had just happened. So, who did they want you to select as the maid of honor? His sister or something? Update, 1 week later. Are my BFF and ex-fiancé exes? No. The engagement party was their first meeting. My ex and I went to the same college, while my best friend attended a different one. Now for the update. A few hours after my original post, one of his relatives told me why my ex said I had no family values. Apparently, in his family, the maid of honor and best man roles are reserved for siblings. I have 2 sisters, one older who's 30 and one younger who's 21. Neither were interested in the role. My older sister was mad at my ex for trying to set her up with one of his male coworkers at her own wedding to her wife. He even tried to do the same thing to her wife. I didn't know about this until after the engagement was broken. My younger sister wasn't interested because she was busy with her own college work. She's taking extra courses so she can graduate early. My ex even tried to convince her to drop out of college to be my maid of honor. I guess I dodged a bomb with this one. I wonder what other secret rules they would have pulled out and not articulated later on. Secret tradition about baby naming, house selection, holiday dinner dishes. If you want to punish someone for making the wrong choice and don't want to explain the right choice, you just wanted an excuse to punish them. Am I the jerk for only paying for my own food at a friend's dinner and wasting everyone's time? Last night, my friends and I decided to try a new restaurant that one of my friends, Alex, had been talking about. I wasn't too excited about it because I had never heard of it, so I didn't know what to expect, but I went along to hang out with everyone. When we got there, I looked at the menu and didn't see much that appealed to me. I ended up ordering a small appetizer and a milkshake, while everyone else ordered full meals. When the food came out, I didn't really like what I had ordered, but I ate it anyway because I was really hungry. Also, the food was very overpriced. The milkshake was about $8 and the fries were $6, so the total of what I ordered came to $14. When the bill came, it was pretty high since everyone else had ordered a lot of food. One of my friends suggested that we split the bill evenly, but I didn't think that was fair since I had only ordered a small appetizer and a drink, while everyone else's meals were much more expensive. I said I would just pay for my own food. Some of my friends were okay with it, but a couple of them, including Alex, got annoyed. They said it would be easier to just split the bill evenly and that I was being difficult. I explained that I didn't choose the restaurant, didn't order much, and didn't even like the food, so I didn't think it was fair to pay more than what I owed. We ended up staying an extra 15 minutes because I had a card and no cash, so they had to go to the register to allow me to pay for only my portion. The restaurant was busy, so it took some time. I was told we should have just split the bill because now we wasted time, but I waited and paid my $14. Now I'm wondering if I was being unreasonable since it would have been faster to just split the bill. I know a lot of friend groups split bills, so I'm questioning if I was being selfish. I just didn't want to pay an extra $10 for no reason. Edit. Not sure why it's relevant, but I did pay for tax and tip. A lot of people mention cash. I normally pay with cash, but I forgot to bring it that night. My mistake. So I couldn't just throw down cash, I had to use my card. I never verbalized how I felt throughout the night because I didn't want to ruin the mood. It was still fun to laugh with my friends. Not the jerk. If people want to split a bill like that, it has to be known in advance. I feel like when people know the bill is going to be split evenly, they always order more expensive items and the bill gets excessive quickly. To just lay it on like that afterwards means that anyone who didn't eat enough ends up paying for others' share. Essentially, they wanted to split the bill on your back. If they wanted to make it easier, they should have organized it in advance. In the future, they'll know better. Everyone sucks here. Venmo and Cash App have pretty much alleviated this problem completely. It's totally unfair to expect you to subsidize your friends' meals. However, if you're going to pay separately, have a plan. Ask the server for a separate check, or ask whoever's paying if you can reimburse them for your portion using one of the above apps. It doesn't look like you have enough to do. I got my first career job in local government, managing real estate and the legal documents related to it. I was pretty wet behind the ears. This was my first 40-hour-per-week career job. At the time, multitasking was a huge buzzword in business, and it seemed like every job I applied for required someone with good multitasking skills. I thought it was BS. I worked best focusing on one task at a time, managing my workload through a daily time allotment schedule. Each morning, I'd schedule my work in 15-minute chunks and work on those tasks. That way, I never missed a deadline or let a project fall through the cracks. Some tasks would get slotted for 2 hours, some for whole days, and some just for 15 minutes. I loved keeping my desk clean. Any tasks that appeared in my physical inbox were sorted and prioritized. The paperwork was then filed and the task scheduled for later that day or week, depending on how urgent it was. As a result, my desk was always empty except for one folder and a couple of maps related to the folder. Once I finished a task, I'd file away the folder and its maps, then retrieve a new folder and maps. One afternoon, my direct boss walked in, looked at my desk with its one folder and 2 maps, looked at my clean-topped filing cabinets, and glanced at my empty inbox. He grunted and walked out. 20 minutes later, he strode back into my office, dropped 18 inches of folders and papers onto my inbox, and said proudly, "It doesn't look like you have enough to do. This should keep you busy." He smiled and strutted back to his cluttered office. It was busy work, 3 weeks of mind-numbing paperwork. It wasn't outside my job description, just duplicate files, old contracts, unorganized paperwork, and outdated maps. In dealing with this dump of work, I learned my lesson. While doing my actual job was important, it was equally important to make it look like I was working hard, so I could keep doing my real work. I started saving old files, maps, and legal documents. I bound up papers that would have normally been recycled into legitimate-looking folders. I transformed my office into a duplicate of my boss's chaotic, paper-filled mess. My inbox always had papers and folders in it. The height and numbers varied daily, but it was never empty. I piled folders on top of the empty cabinets, stacked them on the floor, and had 24 of those white office boxes packed with files towering around my workplace. I even added a map rack with old rolled-up maps. My office looked utterly cluttered. I started walking everywhere with a steno pad, a file folder, and sometimes a map under my arm. It didn't matter where I was going. Getting coffee? Pad and file. Heading to the bathroom? Pad and file. Pointless meeting? Pad and 2 files. Actual productive meeting, pad, relevant file, and map. Every morning, right after scheduling my real work, I'd shuffle the fake folders around and papers around my desk and workplace. Every 2 weeks, I'd move the boxes around, but in all that visual chaos, I kept one area of my desk clean, the space where the real work happened. One day, my boss peeked into my office. The door bumped into a stack of 3 white boxes placed behind it, preventing it from fully opening. He looked around, paused at the mess he had just made, then said,
Sorry about that. What are you working on?"
I rattled off 3 of the highest priority properties for my current week's schedule and the tasks for each.
"All right, I'll give this to someone else,"
he mumbled. Then he walked down the hall. I had already completed those tasks. I always make myself look busier than I really am. Otherwise, I get to do other people's jobs too. My Karen wife demands I transfer half of my salary every month. So we're married, but our marriage is in severely rough water. Wife doesn't want counseling. She went for 1 session, but decided it wasn't for her. I kept going to the psychologist. I work full-time and my wife works part-time. I earn 3 times more than her. No prenup or anything. We have 1 son. I pay for all of the bills directly out of my account. Wife saves 100% of her salary. No financial difficulties, no mortgage, and no loans. When we got married, she didn't want a joint account for expenses. My wife has my debit card for daily shopping if she needs it. So now she wants me to transfer her half of my salary to her bank account every month. She gave me a deadline which expired yesterday, and now all heck has broken loose. She has this idea that I'm obsessed with money and wanted to test me to see if I'd do it, but I failed her test apparently. Update: I have not transferred half my salary so far. The idea came from one counseling session we had. At the moment, her mother is still living with us. Her mother says she actually doesn't even want to live here. Several solutions were offered, like renting her a place close by instead of her living with us. I'm more than happy to cover the rent. At the moment, I was giving her the equivalent of $600 per month for the expenses and trouble. She wants double that. One of these suggestions was for my wife to take 6 months unpaid leave during winter and send her mother home. In this case, I would transfer half my salary, to which I would be okay with doing. The issue is, my wife expected me to do it now as a test while she's still working, the test which I failed. I mentioned the almost 6 digits in her savings account that she won't touch. She replied, that's her money. Don't give her anything. You're covering all the bills and she has her salary. If she's not willing to work on the marriage, leave her. Be happy and enjoy life instead of living with someone you'll end up hating, if you don't already. So you pay all the bills, she pays 0, and she wants half of your money too? No way. My ex-wife asked for this, and as the law on marriage in most places is each partner earns half what the other partner has paid, I agreed. I whipped up a spreadsheet, put both our incomes together, calculated outgoings, joint savings, etc., then 50-50 the leftovers. She was over the moon, right up until she found out she was now down to 250 pounds per month. Marriage didn't last long after that, as I refused to change it back. It also just reminded me of the 8 words I'll never forget. I don't want to see your darn spreadsheet. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend I don't like the person she's turning into? For some background, my girlfriend and I have been together for 5 years and we met in college. For the past 4 years, things have been great. I've always thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. She's incredibly out of my league. About a year ago, my girlfriend woke up in the middle of the night and had a panic attack. She couldn't breathe, and I ended up calling an ambulance. She had no history of panic attacks, but she was really stressed at work, so we thought that that's what triggered it. She's currently taking time off work, which I absolutely support, but refuse medication. The doctor recommended anxiety meds, saying she didn't think medication would help when the panic attack was stress-induced. She also doesn't have many friends, and I think that could also be a contributing factor. She has been overall happier. Over the last 6 months, however, she's been changing a lot about herself, and I don't know how to address it. She's dyed her hair an unnatural color. She started wearing more black and dark blue. She's gotten into heavy metal and rock, and she's gone vegan. I've been slowly asking her what's with the new look, new interests, and she said that she's met a girl online who lives in our city who is into the heavy metal scene, and she's taking a liking to it and has made many friends because of it. I was fine with the new interests and friends, but I was cautious because it's such a drastic change in a short amount of time. This past Friday, while she was meeting up with her friends, I asked if I could come along. She said she didn't mind, but asked if I was sure since it's not exactly my scene. I honestly just wanted to meet her new friends. We get to the show, and I'll admit, I was kind of surprised that metalheads are so nice. Sorry to all the metalheads reading this. The only person who didn't acknowledge me or talk to me was this one guy about our age. After the show, everyone was hanging out, and her attention eventually got pulled away from me. She started talking to that one guy who never even said hi to me, and maybe I missed it earlier, but talking to her was the only time I ever saw him smile the entire night. She also clung to him quite a bit, which made me uncomfortable. At around midnight, I couldn't find her, and I texted her it's getting late and we should go. She texted back that she wanted to stay, and if I wanted to leave, she understood. I got angry, but I just texted back, fine. She came home at 4 a.m. completely drunk. I was awake, but pretended not to be. Saturday morning, I was very distant with her while she nursed a hangover. She eventually asked if I was mad at her, and I said yes. I told her I'm happy that she's not stressed anymore and meeting friends and finding new interests, but she's a completely different person than she was 6 months ago. She argued she's the exact same person, but I countered that with the her of 6 months ago would never have been able to go home alone at midnight while she got drunk with people she barely knows and come crawling home at 4 a.m. She got defensive and we fought. She ended up leaving and saying she was going to stay with a friend for the night. She came home Monday morning and we talked, and I told her I'm worried about her, and she says that she's fine. She's finally in a place where she's happy, and I should be happy for her, and if it's such a problem, then we should take a break. I was shocked that she was so willing to just throw away 5 years and told her as much. She shrugged and said she has to put her happiness first, and I asked when her happiness shifted from building a life with me to partying with random people she just met. She rolled her eyes and got up to leave. I told her I don't like who she's turning into, and she called me a jerk and accused me of not wanting her to be happy outside of our relationship. So, am I the jerk? Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.